My egocentric spouse made light of the situation during my father's burial, claiming that I had planned this whole time to take over the $50 million business. His casual consumption of coffee was frightening. He became enraged after I warned him to stop, tossed divorce papers at me, and declared, "My plan is complete." After that, he got to his feet and left, dripping hot coffee all over me. A sense of vengeance consumed me, and I made the decision to act accordingly. He was employed at a petrol station in a few weeks for a low-paying position. "Hi, I'm Sarah Morgan, and I'd want to tell you about my story." It was a story of overcoming adversity, healing from betrayal, and reclaiming my life and legacy. Growing up in Chicago, a city full of aspirations and goals, made it crystal clear that I was destined to carry on my father's work. Titan Motors, an organization that focuses on heavy bike replacement parts, was established by him. I learned as much as I could about the industry from my many hours spent as a child working in the factory. I was just 31 years old when my father died suddenly. Everything felt like it had been ripped out from beneath me. I was distraught. I was appointed president at such a young age, and Titan Motors was worth $130 million. I never thought I would have to take over so quickly, especially without my father to help me. The weight of the responsibilities is too much to bear. Keeping the business viable was a problem for me in the beginning. In stepped Victor Gray, a friend of my father's. The sports bike manufacturer Velocity Cycles, which Victor owned for $50 million, was run by an experienced businessman named Victor. He mentored me and showed me the ropes of management. His advice was priceless, and I came to regard him as more than just a mentor. He was like a father to me. His words of encouragement to me, "Sarah, you have what it takes to lead this company," were frequent. Just believe in yourself. Despite the increasing stress and lack of sleep, his comments gave me the strength to keep going. Mark Gray, Victor's son, was introduced to me soon after my father's funeral. Mark, who was 35 years my senior, was a delightful manager of a Velocity Cycles location, and we were friends. His constant words of encouragement helped me adjust to my new role, and he seemed genuinely concerned for my well-being. Our relationship flourished rapidly when I sensed a connection between us. We tied the knot within a year of our engagement. I was certain I had made the right decision at first. His thoughtfulness and attentiveness served as constant reminders of the value of family and dedication. As he would hold my hand, he would remark, "Sarah, we're going through this together." I had faith that he was acting in Titan Motors and my best interest's best interest. A shadowy side of Mark, though, started to show itself as time went on. Subtle shifts in his conduct were apparent to me after we tied the knot. He would disdainfully refer to Titan Motors as a small-town factory. My self-esteem started to crumble as soon as he started minimizing my work, but I ignored him at first since I assumed it was simply stress from his job. While having breakfast with Sarah one morning, he suggested that she think about leaving her job. "Velocity is too fast for your organization to compete with. Do you really want others to assume I can't be there for you?" I did my best to be understanding, even though his remarks hurt. Mark, my family has left Titan Motors to the world. I am unable to simply disregard it. He adopted an air of contempt as he furrowed his brows. "Sarah, please. Instead than worrying about a failing business, your father would rather you enjoy life." His haughtiness made me feel confined and choked. It was unbelievable to me that the man I cared about could have such low opinion of my job. I kept my mind on Titan Motors even though I was hurting. With Victor's unwavering support, we were able to gradually reverse the situation. But with Victor's unexpected death, everything changed. I arrived early on the day of his burial, still reeling from the news. Mark, standing at the entrance, seemed oblivious to the solemn mood as he casually sipped his coffee. "Mark, can you at least pretend to care?" With a trembling voice, I whispered. An expression of bewilderment crossed his face as he gazed at me. "I don't understand what you're saying." "A funeral is all it is, Sarah." His remark was unbelievable to me. He did nothing except chuckle as I continued to challenge him. Do you truly fail to grasp the situation? My father's business was my objective, and I intended to safeguard it in part by marrying you. Since he left, I've been able to exert full authority. My spirits plummeted. The realization broke me in my very core. What do you mean? Tears started to form in my eyes as I stutter-talked. You can't be serious. A savage grin crept across Mark's face as he hurled divorce papers at me, his expression becoming more rigid. It's finished. That's it. I have everything I could ever want. Thus, you're no longer necessary. Mark, out of sheer desperation, I let out a yell. How can you do this after everything we've been through? His angry outburst caused him to hurl his coffee at me, which splattered hot liquid all over my blouse. The pain of betrayal was more intense than the coffee's heat, and I let out a cry of shock. He stormed off, yelling, "You'll regret this, Sarah," and I stood there, ashamed and devastated. At that same second, everything shifted. A profound feeling of betrayal washed over me as the love I believed we shared was exposed as an illusion. I made a solemn promise then that I would reclaim my life and everything in it, including Titan Motors, from the clutches of an egotistical guy. There would be challenges ahead, but I was prepared to face them head-on. I had no idea that this was just the first battle of a truly epic scale that would put my mettle to the test. Anger and resolve swirled inside of me after Mark walked out on me. Immediate action was required of me. The betrayal hurt like new, but it also made me stronger. I refused to let someone who didn't value the continuation of Titan Motors, my family's legacy, to sully it. I drew a long breath and started to think of a strategy. I had to talk to my legal staff first. After years of working with my family's legal team, I contacted Lisa, my attorney. "Sarah, I'm so sorry to hear about Victor and everything that has transpired with Mark," she stated with a compassionate tone. "Let's get together and discuss your options." The following day, the gathering was held. Anxiety was making my palms sweat as I sat in her office. I must end all commercial relations with Velocity Cycles, I declared forcefully, meeting her gaze. Their contracts represent a significant portion of our revenue, and I can't let Mark leverage them against me. For Lisa, it was a deliberate nod. It's no secret that this will have an effect on Velocity's bottom line. Have you thought about the repercussions? Certainly, I responded, my voice trembling under the pressure of importance. He's made it clear that he doesn't respect me or my work. I had to prove to him that he should not underestimate me. We then started to draft the paperwork needed to end the contracts. I experienced an unusual blend of melancholy and strength as I put my signature on the paperwork. For the sake of Titan Motors and my own futures, I had to cut lengths with the guy I had loved in the past. The impacts were felt immediately upon contract termination. As soon as word got out that Titan Motors had severed ties with Velocity Cycles, it went viral. As Mark's business started to fail, I stood by and observed. Concerned about potential instability, clients began to back out of their orders. The money he was counting on started to disappear, and he lost faith in himself along with it. As the tides turned at the factory, I could feel the mounting pressure on the workers. If I wanted to reassure everyone, I convened a meeting. "I am aware that we are facing challenging times," I started, meeting the gaze of my teammates. "However, we shall emerge from this situation more resilient than before. We can explore new markets and establish new collaborations." Supportive nods and murmurs accompanied my remarks. Their unwavering support and dedication inspired me to do the same. Our joint efforts to cultivate connections with new businesses allowed us to significantly increase our client base. I made it a point to attend networking events and showcase our talents and offerings. Titan Motors' strength lies not only in our products, but also in our people, as I came to discover the more I exposed myself. Word got spread about Velocity Cycle status as the weeks grew into months. Mark was finding it difficult to keep control of their growing financial problems. Knowing that my decision had major repercussions made me feel a little better. but it also made me nervous for his employees. They had no say in his behavior, and thinking of Victor, who would have hated this, came to mind. An old friend of mine, Jonathan, who oversaw a large bike retailer, called me one night when I was working on some contracts at my office. "Sarah, I've been hearing great things about Titan Motors," he pointed out. "Perhaps we could talk about forming a partnership. I believe we are capable of great things, and your reputation is on the rise." I found hope in his remarks. "Indeed, dear Jonathan." With anticipation building in my chest, I said, "I would be delighted to meet with you and explore potential collaboration." Despite the cloud over my own life, I could see chances opening up for my business as I hung up the phone. I devoted myself fully to this collaboration, and I worked closely with Jonathan to introduce a new product line. A fresh sense of purpose washed over me with each achievement. At the same time, the image of Mark's icy attitude from our previous meeting kept popping into my head. Speculation circulated over his management style at Velocity, and I wanted to know more. His haughtiness had transformed into a state of desperate need as employees began to go. Even though I ignored his rejection, my thoughts continued to wander to Titan Motors. I had an unannounced guest drop by one rainy afternoon as I reviewed financial reports. Jessica, a previous employee of Mark's, was the one involved. She entered my office with a distressed expression. Her voice quivered as she apologized for her unprepared appearance to Sarah. "Telling you what's going on at Velocity felt like I had to. Mark is completely confused." I paid close attention as she detailed the ways in which Mark had been a terrible manager and had failed to pay his workers. "Sarah, it's terrible. People are having a hard time. I simply did not want you to believe he was escaping punishment," she explained, her eyes welling up with tears. At the same time, I felt determined and empathic. The lives of those impacted by Mark's decisions were at stake, not only mine, but theirs as well. I conveyed my gratitude to Jessica for her bravery in coming out and assured her that her information would remain private. That night, when the sun dipped below the horizon, I made up my mind to keep on. I was resolute in my mission to safeguard my family's heritage and create a future of which I could be proud, despite the many obstacles that lay ahead. I had no idea that we still had a long way to go before our last showdown with Mark. My progress at Titan Motors accelerated as the weeks went by. We were releasing cutting-edge products that were well received by consumers, and our new collaboration with Jonathan was flourishing. I was more assured than ever before in my position as the plant hummed with activity. But I couldn't turn a blind eye to the truth about Mark and Velocity cycles. From time to time, rumors would circulate regarding Mark's growing desperation. I found out that he was not paying his suppliers on time, and that a lot of his staff were quitting. During an afternoon team meeting, one of my supervisors brought up a report that they had heard. "Over at Velocity, it's terrible. From what I've heard, they're denying the existence of the problem and have reduced their personnel by half." I drew a long breath. This must not impact us. While I did my best to urge everyone to keep their attention on the task at hand, a small part of me couldn't help but feel sorry for the people who were caught up in Mark's mismanagement. Everything changed when I got a call on a wet Thursday. Defending my case, it was Lisa. "Sarah, I think you need to be aware of something important," she pointed out. "Mark has filed for bankruptcy." The rapid beating of my heart was palpable. What does that mean for Titan Motors? Concern and intrigue swirled within me as I inquired. "Well, it means he's looking to dissolve Velocity cycles, but it could also mean he'll try to reclaim some of the debts he owes by going after Titan Motors. According to her, we should prepare ourselves in case he tries to pull anything." "Is there any way he can do that?" Anxietiest of all, I inquired. Our company's future was dependent on my efforts, and I would not allow Mark to undermine them. "It's unlikely he would succeed, but we need to be vigilant," she said. "I recommend tightening up our contracts and preparing for any legal challenges." Thinking about what Mark may do next left me dazed for the remainder of the day. After losing his pride, the once proud branch manager sought salvation at any cost. I was curious about his potential outcomes. His level of depravity became clear to me a few days later. Upon entering the facility, I happened to overhear a discussion taking place between two workers. Has it reached you? According to Mark, Titan Motors betrayed Velocity by destroying their contracts. A look of surprise crossed one of their faces as they spoke up about how he was attempting to implicate Sarah. A trickle of blood ran down my cheeks. I muttered under my breath, "This is outrageous." It was unbelievable to me that Mark would persist in trying to tarnish my reputation after everything that had happened. It was as though he had forgotten everything. Later that day, I met with Lisa to go over my alternatives. I finally vented my frustrations by saying, "He's trying to tarnish my reputation. I will ensure that he is held accountable. The evidence of his mishandling needs to be gathered." Lisa stated, "If you can show that his claims are baseless, it will only strengthen your position in court." Driven by resolve, I devoted the following weeks to gathering any and all relevant information. Emails, reports, and testimonies from former employees such as Jessica. I was ready to fight back because I knew the truth was on my side. However, fear set in as the impending court struggle drew near. It was unbelievable that the guy I loved so much had become such a vicious enemy, ready to resort to any means to protect himself. I pondered whether he remained the enchanting individual I had wed or if he had departed with the life we had created together. Afterwards, I got yet another call right when I believed I had everything under control. Mark was there. He stated, "Sarah, we need to talk," in an emotionally distanced tone of voice. The weight of everything that had happened made me hesitate. What could we possibly have to discuss? With a racing heart, I responded, "I believe we can reach a consensus," he stated, his tone taking on a more arrogant tone. "Gather here. We can yet find a way out of this together." Our meeting had me uncertain of what to anticipate, but I was determined that I would no longer allow Mark to control my destiny. I reluctantly consented to meet him, bracing myself for what lay ahead. I was prepared to tackle anything he had in store for us as we approached the last showdown. On the day of my appointment with Mark, I was overcome with a storm of emotions. I found a cozy cafe on Chicago's outskirts, a place where we could both relax and have a conversation free of our baggage. I entered the room and saw him seated at a table. His face betrayed him. Instead of his customary haughtiness, a hint of desperation was seen on his weathered face. He called out to me, "Sarah," but his voice was far from charming as it once was. "Mark," I said with an air of calm authority as I sat down facing him. There was an electric stillness that told me a lot about the hostility that had grown between us. I could feel the strain. He started by scratching the back of his neck, evidently uneasy, and said, "I am grateful that you could come. Things have been tough, I'm sure of it. What I really want to do is discuss the future." With my stance prepared to be defended, I leaned forward. "When you say, 'What's next?' what can you explain? It was you and not I who went bankrupt. It seems like you're attempting to pin your failure on me." He betrayed his frustration with a frustrated sigh. I hoped it wouldn't get to this point. I was under the impression that we could save our respective businesses. We can work something out. Try to come to an agreement. Are you seriously under the impression that I would simply let you destroy my reputation after all you've done? Fury welled up inside of me, and I fired back. "I didn't intend for it to escalate to this degree," he remarked, his voice slightly elevating. "The way things work in business, though, my situation was dire. Desperate enough to throw coffee in my face at my father's funeral, I sternly reminded him, 'You've revealed your genuine character, Mark. You are not the man I believed I was marrying.' For a split second, his tough exterior gave way to his real frailty. The error is obvious to me. Thanks to my dad's legacy, I've become knave. However, I would like an opportunity to resolve this. We might be able to collaborate." Watching his every word, I glared at him. The whole affair has made me wonder if I can trust him. Why should I trust you at this point? Does anyone have any proof that this isn't another attempt at manipulation? His mind seemed to be spinning in circles as he paused. Eventually, he spoke up and offered a settlement. I'll drop the claims against Titan Motors if you help me secure a new partnership to save velocity. As I considered his suggestion, I reclined in my chair. There was a positive side to this. There was a chance to aid the workers who had been harmed by his leadership. But would I be putting my company's future at jeopardy by realigning myself with him? Mark, the devastation you've inflicted is too great. Your careless choices have no place in dealing with your employees. I told them emphatically. I won't be a part of saving a company that has shown such disregard for its employees. I had a glimpse of the guy I knew before as his shoulders drooped. Sarah, I've lost it all. It wasn't until after the fact that I needed you that I realized how much. Reminiscing about the wonderful days we had together made my heart soften. But there was an excessive depth of betrayal. It is you who are to blame. Titan Motors will not be brought crashing down by your mistakes. After that, I got to my feet and prepared to go. It is concluded. I refuse to play a role in your failure. You must accept responsibility for your acts. A mixture of melancholy and relief washed over me as I made my exit. The shackles of our history were finally coming off of me. Titan Motors and I were both relieved that we had made the correct decision. I had exerted too much effort into my company's success to allow someone like Mark to derail my progress. A few weeks later, as a result of Mark's incompetence, Velocity Cycles formally declared bankruptcy. People who worked for me in the past have reached out to express their appreciation for the guidance and encouragement I provided during the changeover. They could already feel the eagerness to begin a new chapter in their lives at Titan Motors, a company that valued respect and hard effort. While sitting in my office one afternoon going over new contracts, I looked out the window at the busy city below. After overcoming all of my challenges, I felt stronger than before. I was adamant about safeguarding Titan Motors since it was more than simply a business to me. It was my father's heritage. Regarding Mark, rumor has it that he is now working as a gas station attendant in an effort to make ends meet. I could feel some sorrow for him, but I also recognized that this was the result of his decisions. My fortitude and resilience allowed me to regain my dignity and continue my legacy, demonstrating that lying is no match for them. I shut my eyes and let myself to be carried away by the emotion. I was prepared to welcome the future with open arms, a future brimming with possibilities and the determination